Some people spend most of their lives living close to where they were born. What might be the reasons for this? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Let's understand the question first. The given statement is pretty simple. It's just saying that some people continue to live near their childhood home or in the same town where they were born. There are two distinct questions. What might be the reasons for this? It's very similar to what are the reasons for this or why is it so. One difference is if it had been why is it so, it would have been enough even if I had given just one reason for this. But since the plural reasons is mentioned, it is important to give at least two reasons. And then the second question is what are the advantages and disadvantages? I have to mention both to score a good band in the task response criterion. So having read and understood the question, what I already know is the basic format of my essay. In our essays, our first paragraph is always the introduction, the last paragraph always the conclusion. The body paragraphs depend on exactly what is asked. Usually we have two body paragraphs. We are asked advantages and disadvantages. So in one we would mention advantages, in other we would mention disadvantages. But in this one we would need three body paragraphs because three distinct things are asked. So my first body paragraph would be the reasons, my second body paragraph would be the advantages, and my third body paragraph would be the disadvantages. Next, I decide what to write before I start the actual writing. That is, I plan my essay, I plan what points I'm going to write. So let's talk about idea generation. Do not overthink it. The moment you read and understand this question, start thinking of people who have chosen to do this. That is, stayed close to where they were born. It could be you yourself or someone in your family or a friend. And think about why they made that decision. And if you don't get enough ideas from these, try thinking of celebrities and of fictional characters. For example, I'm thinking of this female character in the movie The Proposal. The story is that this guy has moved to a big city from his comfortable life in his hometown. Most of the movie is the story of a weekend when he visits home for his granny's birthday. And while he is in his hometown, he once again gets in touch with this female. The two had been romantically involved when they were in high school, but he wanted her to live with him, to go to live in the big city. She chose to break up with him rather than leave her hometown. So she is happy in her hometown. She is a teacher here. He, on the other hand, had bigger dreams. So why did she choose to stay back? Because her ambition was not to move out. So a lot of times why people choose to live at the same place or why people choose to leave is about their temperament. It is about their aspirations in life. This is actually a point that we used in another essay recently about why some people like to try new things and others do not. The link to that essay is on your screen now, and it is also in the description of this video. So as I said, you could get ideas from personal experiences, from experiences of others, and sometimes even experiences of fictional characters. An interesting thing I've noticed in this question is that it doesn't say that some people choose to spend most of their lives. So one of the reasons could be that maybe they wanted to move out but they could not because they didn't have the financial resources, the money to do so. Or they would have wanted to move out but they had responsibilities closer to home and that's why they chose to stick around. So having broadly thought about our ideas or where we could get ideas from, let's start penning down our ideas. First, we figure out the reasons, then the advantages, and then the disadvantages. So our aim should be to write minimum of two each, two reasons, two advantages, two disadvantages. Anything more than that is entirely up to you. So the first reason I'm going to write is that maybe people like the feeling of home that they get in their town or their city. Maybe they don't aspire to leave. That is the kind of people they are. That is their temperament. And that is their comfort zone. Another reason I can imagine is that some people just study near their house, they get a job there. So they don't move out because they get a job there and then they get settled there and there's no reason to move out. And as an extension of this is the possibility that a person has a family business. This is something I've personally observed in lives of a lot of people who end up not moving out. They have a family business, they have a family home, so they choose to live near that same area. And then the next point that I'm writing is that maybe they do so because they have responsibilities. Could be taking care of their parents, could be choosing to just stay close to their family and their parents. And it may also be that they didn't have the resources to move, they didn't have the money, or they never got the opportunity. Now, if you look at this, all of these reasons are possibilities. So when I write, I'll word them as this could be the reason or one possibility is this. I will not say people do not leave because they are responsible for the family. I will not write people do not leave because they join a family business. Rather, the tone would be this could be one reason, that could be another reason. And that is a better way to write essays. Let's list out the advantages and disadvantages now. So again, imagine staying at a place you have stayed since childhood. You'd know so many people there. So one advantage would be you would have a great support system. And as I'm thinking of this advantage, I'm actually thinking of the disadvantage that it's a very sheltered life. You don't have too much adventure in your life. You live a very protected life. So that would be the disadvantage. Back to advantages. Another advantage is you're closer to your friends and family. Back to the disadvantages. Career opportunities may be limited. If one is open to traveling, if one is open to moving base, they could get better career opportunities. I'm thinking of another disadvantage here, which is a conditional disadvantage. So we thought about this, that what if somebody wanted to leave and they could not? So I could write that if a person doesn't leave because he didn't have the resources but he really wanted to, it could lead to discontentment in life. It could lead to dissatisfaction in life. At this stage, before I start writing, I consciously think of what vocabulary I could use. The major words I focus on are the words in the question. So what words could I use for where a person was born, their native place, their birthplace, their childhood home? Close to, I could write near. So these are some words I consciously think of. I also try to think if I'm able to come up with any other idioms or any other special phrases that I could use in this context. For example, in this case, I'm thinking of the idiom fly the coop or fly the nest. It has two meanings. One is if somebody just leaves suddenly or without telling. But there's another meaning of this, which is when children leave their family home, either for education or later once they get a job. So I'm thinking of using this idiom in this essay. On your screen are a couple of simple paraphrasings of this statement in the question, but the one I'll be using in my essay is a slightly complex one. The question says some people choose not to move. I will begin my essay with, although some people choose to move, others do not. And then I'll start with giving the reasons, etc. So I'll start my writing with, although a large majority of people fly the coop and move far away from their hometowns, some do not. The latter category of individuals lives their lives in the vicinity of their childhood homes. So the second sentence is actually the paraphrasing of the question, but I've connected it to a very simple general statement. I've also used the word latter here. The words former and latter are used when we are talking about two things. Former refers to the first one and latter refers to the second one. So if I say I like both coffee and tea, but I prefer the former, it means I prefer coffee. And if I say I prefer the latter, it means I prefer tea. So in my essay, I have mentioned two choices. Some people choosing to move away from home, other people choosing not to do so. And the latter category is the people I mentioned second. That is the people who do not move away. After the beginning general statement and paraphrasing of the question, I just mentioned that there could be different reasons for this choice and that it has both advantages and disadvantages. So I'll write, the causes for this lifestyle choice could be varied and it has both benefits and drawbacks. A couple of things to be noticed here. I have replaced reasons with causes. Instead of advantages and disadvantages, I've written benefits and drawbacks. And I have introduced the phrase lifestyle choice. These are the kind of phrases which make even memorized sentences fit in well with your essay. If I had just written the causes for this could be varied and it has both benefits and drawbacks, it would have sounded very general and not at all connected to this particular question. But just by writing this lifestyle choice here, I've connected it to the choice that people are making. Instead of this, I could also have written, the causes why people choose not to move out could be varied, and this trend has both benefits and drawbacks. Now we start with the second paragraph, that is the first body paragraph, in which we'll list out the reasons. That is, we'll answer the first question, what might be the reasons? The first reason in our planning is that a person may just get a feeling of home, because of which he or she may not want to leave at all or may not aspire to leave at all. I'll write this as, the first and the foremost reason for choosing to stay near one's birthplace is the feeling of home one gets in that town or city. As a result, one may not aspire to leave this feeling of comfort and security. Make a note of the phrase, the first and the foremost, that I've used to list out the reason, and then the phrase as a result that I've used to elaborate on that point. Let's write the second point now about getting job opportunities near one's birthplace. This one I'll start with secondly. Secondly, if a youngster gets career opportunities nearby after completing their education, they may never move away. This is especially apparent in the instances when one joins their family business. So this is a conditional reason. If one gets career opportunities, they will not move away. Instead of saying if a person gets career opportunities, I've written if a youngster gets career opportunities. So we always need to be on a lookout of places where we can replace people or person with something specific. A person getting their first career opportunity after completing their education will most probably be a youngster. So which is why I've used the word youngster here. And family business is an example of such a career opportunity. Instead of just saying, for example, a person may have family business and therefore join it, I've started this example as this is especially apparent in these cases. Also, I have used the verb may instead of will. So I've not written they will not move away. I'm saying they may not move away. There's a possibility that they may not move away. Now after this, we had two more points about family responsibilities and lack of financial resources. When we have too many points, at times it just makes sense to club a couple of points, especially when we know that we also have a lot of other stuff to write. In this one, we have to write both advantages and disadvantages after this. So the third point, I could just have started with thirdly, but I'm writing it as a third possible scenario is when factors such as family responsibilities and lack of funds contribute to this decision of staying put. So this is a slightly complex sentence. Instead of saying people choose to stay at the same place because of family responsibilities and lack of funds, I have written this sentence. Instead of reason, I have used the word factor. Instead of this may happen, I have written it is a possible scenario. And I have introduced a phrase here, to stay put, which means to stay at the same place without moving. Could be for a short duration or for a long duration. Let's start with the third paragraph now, which is the second body paragraph, in which we'll write the advantages. I could just start with the first advantage of this is, but I'm writing in a slightly different way. As far as the merits of residing near where one grew up are concerned, the first is that one would have a great support system in the area. So I've used another synonym of the word advantage, that is merit. Instead of native place or childhood home, I've used the phrase where one grew up. And in this one sentence, I've combined the topic sentence as well as the first point. In the next sentence, I'll elaborate on this point. So one phrase we can use to support or elaborate a point is after all. After all, one would be surrounded by many people one may have known since childhood days. Therefore, being close to family and friends is a big boon of not moving far away from home. Another word for advantage, a boon. And I've just thought of another point which I had not thought of when I was planning the essay, which is that along with knowing the people, one also knows the place, the culture there, etc. So I'll write it as, moreover, the culture and living style of that place are familiar to the person. the next paragraph now, which will mention the disadvantages. I'll start it with a contrasting phrase, on the other hand, and a simple topic sentence that there are some demerits as well. On the other hand, there can be certain demerits of opting to live in the same place throughout one's life. The first point about a sheltered life. Firstly, this could mean that the person in question leads an overly sheltered life, which can be very limiting. Notice that I've used the word could. There is a possibility that it could be a sheltered life. We can't assume that just because a person is living near their childhood home, they would be leading a sheltered life. There is a possibility of this negative. I'm not saying it's a negative for sure in all the cases. Also, a phrase I have used here is in question. I've said the person in question. In question means what is being discussed or what is being talked about. So the persons we are talking about here are the kind who don't move away. Instead of repeating that, I'm just saying the persons in question. And the second disadvantage we had thought of was that there'd be fewer opportunities. So we'll write it as, also this restriction of movement can translate into fewer job choices and opportunities. So again, instead of saying not moving away, I'm using the phrase restriction of movement. Notice that throughout, I'm either using synonyms of the word birthplace such as childhood home or where one grew up, or I'm using its antonym and writing things like not moving far away. On to the conclusion now. Now this is a discursive essay. There is no opinion asked. We are not even asked whether there are more advantages or disadvantages in our opinion. We are just asked what are the advantages and disadvantages. In such cases, our conclusion is just a summary of the essay, and it's very similar to what we write in our introductory paragraph. In the introduction, I had written the causes for this lifestyle choice could be varied, and it has both benefits and drawbacks. In my conclusion, I'll write something very similar. But depending on what points I have made, I may want to add little details. Like I have made points about different reasons depending on a person's choices or depending on a person's responsibilities. So I can bring that factor in that it would vary from person to person. Here's my conclusion. In conclusion, there can be a variety of reasons behind the choice to get settled near one's birthplace. So that summarizes the reasons I have given. The next sentence. Also, there are both positives and negatives of this, which would depend from person to person and their reason for making this choice. Instead of advantages and disadvantages, I've used another set of synonyms, positives and negatives, but just summarize the whole essay in the conclusion. This essay question is taken from Cambridge IELTS Book 16, General Training, and the answer that is given in the book as a response to this is a Band 6 essay. And then there is the examiner's comment about the reason that it is a Band 6 essay. One point that is mentioned is that the reasons are not mentioned in the essay. The Band 6 essay that is mentioned in the book only gives advantages and disadvantages. And the examiner has commented that if the candidate had included the reasons, this response would have scored more highly. So this is something we need to keep in mind. We don't have to stick to the 4-paragraph format. We have to figure out what the question is asking, and we need to make sure that we answer every single part of the question. So here is a complete essay with some of the major words and phrases highlighted. You can read this complete essay on our website www.guidetoielts.com. The direct link to this essay is in the description of the video. And here is a list of some of the vocab that we have used in this essay. Hope this helped you. All the very best.